Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Blew his house with the blue little window and a blue Corvette, and everything is blue for him and himself and everybody around, cause he ain't got no one to listen. I'm blue. I'm blue. You want to keep going? No,
No,
okay.
I don't want to keep going because it seems like you know all the words somehow. We always have to look up lyrics on this show, but no, this is the one song that Josh is a master of, apparently. That's amazing.
Come on, I usually know some of the lyrics.
It's true, actually. You are very good with lyrics. I just didn't expect that to linger in the brain.
Yeah, it was from, like I said, the college years. I don't know why.
That's incredible. Well, with that swell note, you are watching / listening to the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
It's been 2 years since we did the top 10 cards of a certain color. And before that...
Probably longer than that for some of the colors, right?
Yeah, before that, it was another 2 years before we did it. So 4 years since we started doing top 10 lists on the show. So today, we're going to take a bit of a different approach. We're going to go back to this. People have actually requested us to do top 10 / list of cards. So instead of talking about the top 10 cards, we're just going to go ahead and go down the list and talk about the best cards in certain categories, as well as talk about a lot of the runner-ups. And, you know, I'm glad we're doing the runner-ups because a lot of the best cards are very expensive, but you can get a lot of the runner-ups for a great rate over at cardkingdom.com/commandzone. That's our affiliate link. You use that link, you can be powerful. You can be, what are the lyrics?
Blue, some...
Dabu D.
Yeah, and you could Dabu Die. Yeah, you can be all that.
You can do that too by visiting cardkingdom.com/commandzone. Really helps the show, and they have incredible service. They'll get your cards to extremely quickly, so you'll be playing with some of these amazing cards in no time at all.
Yeah, and while you're there or anywhere else that you can buy Magic cards, you should think about protecting them with UltraPro products because they really do make the best stuff. And if you're going to go with blue cards, since that is the theme for this episode, you probably want blue Eclipse sleeves. Ooh. You might want a sweet full art island, unstable art playmat, all available through UltraPro. Really, honestly, if you're doing any sort of theme for your deck, UltraPro's got you covered, right?
Yeah,
Like they have the stuff for your deck that can really make everything matching. So you can have blue your house and a blue little window and a blue Corvette. So and everything will be blue for you.
You know, and the reason you protect your cards is because if you damage them, you're going to be blue.
You're going to be blue.
All right. The final way to support the show is directly at patreon.com/commandzone. We call it one lucky patron every single week. Our patrons get a lot of great benefits, by the way. They also get to watch game nights a day early. And by the time this episode is out, so will...
Yeah, they probably... they watched it before you did, but you've probably also seen it by this point, too.
So congrats.
Our schedule sometimes is in flux.
It's in flux.
I think this is coming out after game nights, though.
Okay, cool. So we call it one lucky patron every single week. And this week's episode is dedicated to... LEAH. GUSKJOLEN.
GUSKJOLEN.
Sounds like...
GUSKJOLEN. Gusk. Man, that is a... Is it Scandinavian?
It's Nordic?
Okay. Sure. LEAH. We're sorry we butchered it, but thank you so much for supporting us, and you definitely rock.
Yeah, you definitely rock.
LEAH is very blue about how we
I know.
pronounced
he is like this is not the episode for me.
All right, the best blue cards in Commander. Again, we've done the top 10 list before, but there's been a lot of time this past, so things are probably have changed. And also, we're going to experiment a little with a different format today.
Yeah, so let us know what you think. Also, we're going to be running a community poll asking the exact same questions about what you think your top cards for these categories are. And we're going to compile that data. We're going to share it online, and we get to see what the community, you at large, think. So there's going to be show notes, links in the show note below, as well as on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever else we post, you will find the poll. And it'd be great to get thousands of people to tell us what they think the best blue cards are, and we'll have detailed graphs and all that stuff.
We should say really quickly, we are on Instagram now.
Yes.
We've been on Facebook and Twitter for a while. If you have those social media platforms and you're not following us or connected with us there, you definitely should be. And also, we've recently sort of upped the amount of stuff we're doing on all of those platforms, so there's a lot of fun little discussion going on. So if you want to be part of it, find us. Okay.
Find us.
All right. So before we sort of talk about the cards themselves, we want to talk about the metrics that we use to determine the power level of the cards or why we're choosing this as the best card over other things. So One of the metrics we always consider is mana cost.
Yep, the cheaper it is, usually the better, because it means you can cast it earlier. You can also do more things when you cast it by casting other cards.
Yeah,
usually
one mana removal spell, that like Swords to Plowshares is just a lot better than Murder.
Yeah.
It exiles, and also it's 1 mana. Quadrant Theory is something a long time ago now, 5 years ago plus. Jeez. We had Marshall Sutcliffe on an episode, and Quadrant Theory is something that comes from the podcast Limited Resources, and they talk about Draft and Limited, obviously, on that show. But it is applicable to Commander, and basically there's this theory that there's 4 quadrants of the game. So there's the developing or opening stages of the game. Mm-hmm. There is the times you're at parity.
Right. So you're like staring down the opponent. They're staring you down.
Nobody's
changing.
Clearly ahead.
Yeah.
Then there's times when you're winning, and then there's times when you're losing. Now, in Limited and things, those are maybe more even. In our format, you tend to be losing more often. 25% of the time or so, you'll be behind, or maybe not quite that, because sometimes you're at parity. And the opening stages of the game is a guaranteed quadrant you're going to hit. You may never be winning the game, and some games you may never be losing the game, but that's kind of, you think, oh, well, how does this card perform in those different quadrants? Because those are stages that at some point I may or may not be at.
Yep, and that's going to help us determine what we think are the best cards. And finally, general relevance to the format. So if a card says look through your sideboard, it's not going to really come close to making on a list like this, because sideboards aren't really supported in Commander. So in general, does the card enable some sort of strategy that's really prevalent? Is the card just by itself a really powerful commander, so you can play it as your commander? These are all factors that are going to determine how powerful that card is overall.
Is a card super unique? Yeah. Is there like no other card that does what it does? Then you're probably going to value that highly. Because, honestly, Force of Will is a great card, but there's a whole bunch of cards that counter spells.
Yeah.
There might not be a whole bunch of cards that do what, this specific card does. So,
yep. And each color is different as well. If we were talking about red, we cannot say best counter spell, because there's, I think, 1.5 one maybe, right. But we're in blue, so that is a topic we'll be talking about. So each of the colors, when we do them, will probably have different categories.
Okay, so let's talk about first our 2 ever-present categories that we talk about in every episode of the show. Every deck needs ramp and card draw.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the best ramp spell in blue. I don't know how we do this. Do we preamble? Let's just say it. High Tide.
High Tide. Yes. So blue doesn't really have access to a lot of ramp. It's not a color known for ramping, and there are a couple of cards that do it in an interesting way, and High Tide is one of them. Normally, you see this as like the card in Storm decks that lets them go off. High Tide is blue for an instant, and it says, until end of turn, whenever a player taps an island for mana, that player adds an additional blue. So not just you, but anyone else.
Yeah.
You can cast it on other players' turns, but more importantly, you're casting it on your turn when you are now able to tap all of your blue mana for double. So again, this is something that Mono Blue just doesn't have access to, and High Tide gives you a way to do it in a one-shot. And blue is good at getting these kinds of cards back too and replaying them.
Yeah, it's a ritual, basically, right? Like, it's worded in a fancy way, but it's not that different than a Mana Geyser or a Dark Ritual. It's just the amount of mana it can give you is a lot more than Dark Ritual, and probably close to what Mana Geyser can give you sometimes. But Mana Geyser costs 5 mana.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a ritual-type spell, and I think because blue can be so explosive, this just can give you those turns where you just close the game out.
Yeah, and I think it actually works really well in opening and developing too. If your deck is like, oh, I'll get this back at some point, or you're playing a deck,
that's a really good point.
Can replay it. Like, boom, you have 4 mana on turn 2 all of a sudden, and you're ramping up faster than everyone else because blue doesn't get extra lands from their deck.
It can be something where you get that Gilded Lotus out super early, which is very, very powerful, or something like that. So,
and hopefully even a card draw to make up for it too.
Yeah, and I like your point about being able to get it back. Blue's really good at getting instants and sorceries back out of the graveyard. So that is something that maybe if we were in white, we wouldn't want a ramp spell that's a one-time usage. But
right. Well, you're also very.
You also don't want to be in white. Yeah. Okay.
I just said blue can't get lands out of their library, but we do have some runner-ups, and the first one can get lands out of your library because it was originally printed in the Reverses one.
The Time Spiral block.
Yeah. It's Dreamscape Artist. It's 1 in the blue for a 1/1, and you can pay 2 in the blue to tap, discard the card, sacrifice the land, search your library for 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, and shuffle your library. So you are getting 2 lands for the price of 1 and a card in your hand. And 3 mana.
Well, you discard a card, but the card is it's like you cast Rampant Growth, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
This is a really good card. It's a little slow because it can't be used the turn it comes out, but you're up 1 land on the battlefield. So it's like you overpaid. You turned a card in your hand into a slightly overcosted Rampant Growth.
Right. And you're tossing a land to the bin as well.
Which every color besides green would be cool with, basically, because a lot of us play Burnished Heart.
True.
Which costs 6 mana for 2 lands. This is going to be the same thing. Again, it's 2 cards, obviously, but you play Rampant Growth, right? Like, you don't care about the card you're losing because you're actually getting it onto the battlefield.
Yeah. This is, again, a very bizarre card for blue, but it's one of the few ways that it actually is able to ramp, so it thus deserves the runner-up spot.
Obviously, we're not going to talk about mana rocks here, which are a way that blue really ramps, but exactly. That's not unique to blue. This next one's an interesting one. I'm not sure I've ever seen it cast since the old days.
I've also never seen it, just the actual card, I don't think.
Right. It's Drain Power. It's blue for a sorcery. Target player activates a mana ability of each land they control. Then that player loses all unspent mana, and you add the mana lost this way.
Right. So now there are cards that are like you get to tap your opponent's lands for mana. There's like a ocean-y pirate one.
Yeah.
But the text that's important on this is that it says then that player loses all unspent mana.
Yeah, they don't have a moment in there to use it.
Yeah, so even if they tapped all their mana in response to you, and maybe they could use it then, whatever was unspent is going to get tapped by Drain Power, and you're going to get the leftover mana.
Oh, that's a good point. They could tap in response.
But a lot of times, like they can tap in response, and then you can't use their lands anymore. Right. So this way, you actually get the unspent mana because that's a part of the text on the card. So it's it's a bad card.
It's not great because there's going to be plenty of games where just when you would want to use it, you just can't. People used all their mana or have ways to use their mana. Yeah. If they have like a mana sink, let's say they have a Staff of Domination out. Well, you're just, you're not going to get any mana because they can burn it all.
Yeah, or like a Thrasios or just any kind of activated ability or instant speed stuff. It's like, fine, I'll do it now. So this is not great ramp. This next card, I consider ramp. Yeah, it's Thada-Del Acquisitor. It's a legendary creature, so it can also be your commander. It's a 2/2 with Island Walk, and whenever Thada deals combat damage to a player, you search that player's library for an artifact card, exile it, and then you can cast that card. So this basically says, hey, you want to play a Soul Ring of someone else's deck? That's kind of ramp, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. It's saving you on mana.
Yeah, so Thada has kind of that ability there.
This next one's a really interesting card, and I played in a few decks. It's Reset, blue for an instant. It says, cast this spell only during an opponent's turn after their upkeep step. And then it says, untap all lands you control. Very powerful spell because it can give you 12 mana sometimes, but it is restricted into... You can't use it on your turn to get that stuff going during your turn.
Yeah,
but
and to get double your mana.
Of course, I played a lot because I have a lot of decks with like Vidalcan Ori and things like that, and I very often am casting things during other players' turns. So it's all the same to me when my mana is untapped. And this 2 mana give you 10 sometimes is really, really, really powerful. Probably, I would say the most powerful of the runner-ups.
Yeah,
but it's narrow and its usage. You definitely can't go in every deck.
That's sort of like the beauty of the color pie is that it is narrow in its usage when it's doing something that's not great. It's not like meant for that color. But if you use correctly we have the format to abuse and use all these cards in the coolest and best ways.
I would say of the runner-ups, for me, the takeaway, anybody out there, if they hadn't heard of this card already, is Dreamscape Artist is actually a very underrated card and can be very good in certain decks. Again, it's a little bit slow, so I think if you're in a high-powered meta, you decks that are like 8+, probably you don't have time. But if your play group is a little more casual in the 5, 6, 7 range, Dreamscape Artist is going to get you a ton of lands into play, and that will win you games just having more lands than other players out.
Yep. Good job, Dreamscape Artist. You are doing things that blue isn't supposed to.
It's really good in my Tim deck.
Oh, yeah.
Because you just activate it like 4 times, get 4 lands.
Untap it a bunch, yeah.
All right.
Next up, we are moving to Best Card Draw, another one of the pillars of every deck in EDH. And I think this is an easy one and an obvious one, and many of you are probably shouting it at your phone or computer screen or wherever it is, your car radio.
You know what I would say?
Yeah.
I think I've played it in like half the Game Nights episodes.
Yep, it's Rhystic Study. It's incredibly efficient for what it does. It sticks around and is going to draw you many cards, and you're also going to forget its trigger a lot too, I'm sure.
It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1 mana. So this is the classic card where you're like, you're going to pay 1 for that, you're going to pay 1 for that.
And people, if they understand the power level of the card, will pay for it more often than not, I think. But for the most part, sometimes people just can't pay for it, and you're drawing cards.
And what happens is one player doesn't pay for it, and that'll snowball into the other players not paying.
You're like, whatever.
First of all, okay, this person already broke the seal and allowed them to draw a card. But second of all, they advanced their board, and now in order to keep up with them, I have to as well, and I can't afford to and then once the player with Ristic Study has drawn 3 or 4 cards, it feels pointless. Like, they've already drawn 4 off it. What's a 5th? What's a 6th? What's a 7th? So
turns out it actually does make a difference, but yeah, you're right.
Even in play groups like ours where people know how good it is and they want to pay for it, you still end up drawing a bunch of cards off it.
Yeah, and also, like, if you're the only player at the table that pays for it and everyone else is like, sweet, well, that person just made themselves go slower. I'm not going to do that because I think I can beat this player regardless. So it's definitely a tricky card, and it's very, very good at drawing cards.
Unfortunately, expensive. They really need to reprint this card. It wasn't even a rare.
Yeah, I think it was a common, actually.
It's ridiculous how expensive this card is. Wizards, reprint Ristic Study.
Please.
There's all these excuses made, like, oh, new player experience because it's really annoying. And shut up. Just reprint the card. Like, nobody cares about that.
Up. They made Crick. What do you mean new player experience?
Yeah, exactly. There's all kinds of cards where you're like, whenever... They made Smothering Tithe.
You made Golos.
Reprint.
Those are all cards that like
could
end up in very big, unfun times.
All right, let's talk about the runners-up in the card draw category.
Yep.
There's 2 cards that are very similar, Blue Sun Zenith and Stroke of Genius. Blue Sun Zenith is blue, 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 and X. It's for an instant. Target player draws X cards, shuffle Blue Sun Zenith into its owner's library. Stroke of Genius is blue, 2, and X for an instant. Target player draws X cards. So
same CMC.
Same CMC. Blue Sun Zenith costs blue specifically, so 3 mana, then X on both of them. And then Blue Sun Zenith shuffles itself back into your library. And Blue Sun Zenith is sort of a more combo-y competitive card because some decks make infinite mana and then win by drawing that over and over and over again because they can basically have their one card in their library be Blue Sun Zenith. You know, use like a top or something, draw it, just kill you.
Yeah, but because you can target the player, so you're milling them out.
Yeah. Stroke of Genius is a card I use more often just because blue
much easier to cast.
Yeah, it's really prohibitive.
Yep. Another card that's very similar to Ristic Study would be Mystic Remora. It's 1 blue for an enchantment. It has a cumulative upkeep of 1, so your first time it comes back around, you pay 1, then you pay 2, then you pay 3, otherwise you sacrifice it. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 4 mana. So this card never gets paid for, but it is non-creature spells only, which happens to be a lot of spells, especially if you get this on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and at that point, I'd be happy to not develop my board if I'm drawing 3, 4 cards of rotation.
This card's incredible. Borderline better than Ristic Study. It's close.
It's arguable, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely the more competitive your meta, I think the better Mystic Remora is in comparison to Ristic Study because 1 mana is so much less than 3 mana. And even paying for it once or twice can be worth it because a lot of times you see people get like 3 cards off the first go round of the table and be like, it's fine, I cast Ancestral Recall, I'll just let it go.
And everyone's like playing a Signet or a Soul Ring or some kind of cheap artifact or rock.
Yeah. Mystic Remora is and much cheaper than Ristic Study. If you are like, I wish Ristic Study was cheaper, then you should be putting Mystic Remora in your deck.
I just don't get how it's an enchantment. What is this thing?
Remora's a fish, right?
Yeah, but why is it an enchantment fish? We're not in Theros.
It's true. It should be a creature. I don't know. Those were weird days back then.
Well, let's talk about a creature instead. We have Consecrated Sphinx. This is a card that I think has been around forever, and it's 6 mana, which I think makes it a little worse. But 6 mana for a 4/6 flyer. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. Now, that part is insane.
You're getting 6 cards off this 6 mana, though, unless it dies.
Yeah, and I would say I've seen a lot of cards get instant removaled. Consecrated Sphinx might be number 1 on that list of cards really that people just automatically get rid of. And sometimes they can't, and you still draw 2 cards off it. So it does replace itself.
I mean, and your opponents want to draw extra cards too. So a lot of times the very first opponent is like, draw a card, crap. All right, I'm going to do this effect. You're going to get 6 more cards now. Yeah. And
if 2 players have Consecrated Sphinx out, draw your deck.
It's expensive, though. It's not a cheap card. This next one has been reprinted a bunch and is not super expensive. So Factor Fiction, 3 and a blue for an instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the rest and the others into your graveyard. So FOF, as we call it. 5 cards, you pick an opponent, they sort of pile them into 2 piles, and you say, I want that pile, and the rest go into your graveyard, which is way better than going on the bottom of your library or something, because a lot of times, in a lot of decks, you're like, I don't care what you pick, because I'm going to have access to all of them no matter what.
It's instant speed. If you're playing with Craig Blanchett, he just likes to give you all 5 cards. That happened the last time to me, and I immediately won the game.
I do that like 3 or 4 times. It's like, he's like, oh, this is the thing I do, but why?
Well, I did win after it, so I'm not questioning it.
I mean, you're playing Magic to, like, be strategical. Make decisions, man. Think about stuff and try and give them, like, an even split here.
Yeah. It's tough.
I'm speaking directly to Craig because he's
going to be editing this.
The podcast.
Oh, we're going to hear him laughing
I'm
about
not playing
this.
Magic just to be like, oh, whatever. Like, I play Magic to be like, oh, I'm going to think about what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try and make good decisions.
Look, if you're going to just go for 5 cards, just ask the rest of the table to help you out, because Faction Fiction does ask the caster to choose someone to separate them into 2 piles, but...
That person can ask for advice.
Yeah, everyone always gets a little bit of help. Last card here, Josh Lee quite favorite. It's Windfall, 2 in blue for a sorcery. Each player discards their hand and draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So it's actually close to, if not potentially better than like a Wheel of Fortune, because someone could have like 20 cards in their hand.
Wheel of Fortune, very expensive reserve list card.
Yeah.
This is a reasonable approximation. Again, sometimes better. It can also sometimes be worse if you have the most cards, though, and I think that's sort of where it evens out. Still, any deck with blue could run Windfall and not feel bad about it. It's often going to draw you 6 or 7 cards, especially if you're a low CMC deck, low curve deck. You know you're going to play your spells and just be sitting there with less cards in hand than everybody else. Yeah.
Early on, yeah.
All right. Next category.
Oh, wait, I wanted to give a special mention to our spoiler card, Gadwick the Wizened, which is like Stroke of Genius.
On a creature.
But on a creature. And then Into the Story is a new card that's printed that potentially could be 4 mana for 4 cards.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, so the next category is Best Board Wipe. This is going to surprise no one.
No.
It's Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah.
Obviously, this goes in every blue deck and is the most played non-Soul Ring card, I think, in the format, according to EDH Rec.
Jeez.
Yeah, it bounces all your opponent's stuff at instant speed, not yours. Okay, that's boring. Let's talk about the runners-up.
Yeah.
Cyclonic Rift is expensive. And it's hard,
expensive, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to get a hold of. But all these are pretty cheap.
Yeah, Fade Away.
This is a cool one.
A Kobe special. 2 in the blue for a sorcery. For each creature, its controller sacrifices a permanent unless they pay 1. So if there are 50 creatures on the board, you're going to have to sacrifice them unless you're paying 1. I mean, creatures. If you're like a token deck, this just destroys your board.
And, you know, most of the time when people have 3 or 4 creatures, they're not just sitting there with like a bunch of mana open, right? Yeah. They might be able to save 1. A lot of times they can save none if people are tapping out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you make a... Is that a Kobe Bryant reference?
Yeah, he always does the fade away. Yeah. It's just...
I was like, what does this have to do with like high quality beef?
Oh. I like that's where he went. Josh has been hitting the gym a lot. Josh, I'm thinking about protein right now.
Yeah, I need a tasty burger.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, this is pretty interesting. Obviously, in creatureless metas, don't play it. But otherwise, this is like a pretty close approximation of blue getting a board wipe.
I like that because blue doesn't destroy creatures. Also, sacrificing is way worse than destroying. But
yeah, totally.
Usually, blue bounces stuff, which is not as good. Well, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But in general, I'd say I would rather just destroy all creatures than bounce them all back to people's hands.
Yeah.
Because if there's really bad stuff, they're going to recast it.
They're going to recast it, yeah.
But this can make them sacrifice it, which is actually better than destroy because Indestructible doesn't even get around this.
Sometimes they're blowing up permanents, too. Like, I could see someone losing a land to this.
Yeah.
Or a rock or something.
The next one is Evacuation. It's 3 blue for an instant. Return all creatures to their owner's hands.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, the difference between this, obviously, and Cyclonic Rift is it includes your own creatures.
Yeah, if you want to replay those creatures, great. Otherwise, 5 mana, it is an instant, which is pretty crazy. So you do get a lot of value out of it.
That makes it really powerful. I think it's probably better than just like a Wrath of God.
Yeah, and every single creature to everyone's hands. If you do have a lot of ETBs, then you are in business. Or reset your Glendale Legend.
It's very good. It's underplayed. I think people don't prize it as highly as they maybe should. Like, it's close to a second Cyclonic.
Yeah. Another great board-ish wipe is Ixodron. It comes in the battlefield as a XX creature, and you basically turn everything into a face-down creature.
Yeah, as Ixodron enters the battlefield, turn all other non-token creatures face down. They're 2/2 creatures. The trick here is that they're not morphs, so you can't flip them back up unless they're a morph or a megamorph. Yeah. Then they're just face down until you can get them killed, and then they go to the graveyard, and then you have to get them back out or the command zone. Yeah, it's a really good board wipe.
Without a sack outlet, your commander could just be stuck.
This turns off a lot of decks. Another card that I think is pretty underplayed.
Yeah. And finally, the other runner-up for best board wipe would be Sunder, 3 blue for an instant, similar to a lot of other ones. Return all lands to their owner's hands. This is you can already tell why this isn't played.
As an instant, it's very, very powerful. Maybe better again than like Armageddon and stuff. But yes, Social Contract, it rips it in half.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to best single target removal. Again, blue's not great at single target removal, but there are some good cards that do things that are pretty similar. And we consider Capsize to be the best version of single target removal that blue has. It's 1 blue for an instant with buyback 3, so you can pay an additional 3 as you cast the spell. If you do, put this card in your hand as it resolves. It's an instant that just says return target permanent to its owner's hand. With infinite mana, you bounce the entire board.
Yeah, lands and everything.
Otherwise, it's 6 mana, return a permanent. Pretty good. It's not full-on removal, but it's similar to what blue does best, which is a lot of bouncing, a lot of getting things off the board, but not necessarily into the bin.
Yeah, this is an awesome card. Goes in every blue deck. Just the fact that you can remove something and then still have your removal spell for later takes away the disadvantage of removal spells, which is you 1-for-1 your opponent, but your other 2 opponents actually gain card advantage on the 2 of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this next one is another very underplayed card. Should probably go in most blue decks, at least the ones that don't have white.
Yeah, totally.
It's Reality Shift. It's 1 in a blue for an instant. Exile target creature in blue. Its controller manifests the top card of their library. That means they put the top card of their library onto the battlefield, face down as a 2/2 creature. If it's a creature card, it can be turned face up for its mana cost.
So you're hoping it's a land or a
instant or sorcery anything but a creature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it is a creature, they were going to draw it next turn, probably could have cast it.
True.
It's not the worst thing. But what percentage of their deck is creatures? Even creature-heavy decks are only like 33, 34 creatures a lot of times. So 60% chance of just it being a 2/2 forever.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Reality Shift. Good job.
Yeah.
Blue has the ability to exile creatures. And then the next 2 are very similar. It's Pongify and Rapid Hybridization. They're basically very cheap spells, 1 blue each to destroy a creature, and you create a 3/3 green ape creature or a 3/3 green frog lizard creature token. So this is similar to Reality Shift. It turns something into something else. In this case, a 3/3. But
yeah, they're very cheap. Rapid Hybridization and Pongify are 1 mana.
Yeah, it's blue's path to exile.
Why does blue get a better Beast Within? It's crazy.
Yeah, that's actually true. And Rapid Hybridization can't be regenerated either.
Right. Beast Within I know can hit other permanent types.
These next 2 aren't necessarily single target removal, more like single target take away. It's Gilded Drake, which is very expensive, and Treachery. They both basically switch control or give you control of something. Yeah. In general, I would say Control Magic can count as single target removal. Yeah. Gilded Drake costs a ton now because it's 1 in the blue for a 3/3 flying. When it enters the battlefield, you exchange control of it and up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. And if you don't or can't make an exchange, you sacrifice the Gilded Drake. This ability still resolves if target becomes illegal. Very odd text, but yeah, it's great. 2 mana, just switch things.
They get a 3/3 flyer and you get their best thing. Is it on the reserve list or something? Because it's extremely expensive.
I don't know. It's just, it hasn't seen, it's only been printed once. Wizards, another great card to reprint.
I think it might be
there.
reserve list. They might not be able to.
Oh, darn. Wizards, don't break the reserve list. Things that's like hell freezing over, I think.
Treachery, we saw this on game nights, is 3 blue for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. You control target creature. You control enchanted creature. But it also says when Treachery enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. So
wow.
It's a free. It's a 0 cost control magic. Like, whose idea was that? Also, sometimes it's worse than 0. Sometimes you are untapping Gaia's Cradle or a Bounce Land or a Temple of the False God, and you're actually gaining mana on the exchange. Or you've got Yark out and you're done tapping 10 lands.
I didn't even realize that was possible.
No, you saw it happen on game nights.
I know. I blocked it out of my memory.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
That is an absurd. That's what a combo right there. All right, let's move on to the best or most I win card. This is a category that can go for every color, but in blue, I think it's pretty obvious. There are some very big hammer dropping cards at the end of this.
I mean, I don't know if it's obvious. I think any of these cards could be the thing. I mean, I agree, obviously, with what we chose, but it wouldn't be nuts if somebody said one of the other ones.
Well, one of them costs 9 and the other costs 10.
True. The one that costs 9 is the one we chose. It's Expropriate. 7 blue sorcery. Everybody votes. You either vote time or money. You either vote extra turns or you vote get a permanent I control. So when you cast it, you always vote extra turns. So you're always getting 1 extra turn. And then you're either briberying the table, getting 1 thing from each of them, or...
Not from their deck, but from their table, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, not bribery.
Blatant thievery.
Blatant thievery.
There you go.
Yes. Or they're giving you extra turns if they're really doing it wrong.
Yeah, no matter what happens, you will probably win the game as a result of the spell.
Yeah, I've cast Expropriate a bunch of times and only once ever casted and not won that game.
Because you ramped it out on turn 6.
I purposely cast it out on turn 6 just because I was like, well, I can cast it now and it won't win, so I'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, the power level of this card is obvious. You always get an extra turn and you're going to get 1 or 2 permanents of your choice or just more extra turns. You could get up to 4 extra turns for 9 mana.
If you have 9 mana available to you and you get more than 1 extra turn, it's hard not to win.
Yeah. Or put yourself so far ahead that you are just in the winning position.
Speaking of the runner-ups, both of the Expropriate and this one are pretty expensive too.
Yeah. Time stretch. 8 blue for a sorcery. Target player takes 2 extra turns after this one. You could just give someone else the turns.
Yeah.
But you're not.
Yeah.
You're giving it to yourself.
10 mana, take 2 extra turns. Again, you have 10 mana available to you, so you'll probably win because you get 2 extra turns with 10 plus mana.
And the going rate of an extra turn is about 5 mana in blue.
And then the last one has been reprinted recently, so it's probably at a little bit of a low as far as price. It's Omniscience, 7 blue, 10 mana. Enchantment, you may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. You just can cast your stuff. It's like a one-sided Dream Halls or something.
Yeah, and if you have a bunch of card draw in blue, boom, you are just dumping your whole hand on the table. If you don't win from that, I don't really know what you're doing with the deck.
I feel like we didn't throw in a really good budget I win card, so can I just toss one out there?
Heck yeah.
Mind's Dilation.
Mind's Dilation, that is a very good card. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, no, it's true.
It'll often win you the game if it's out for like 2 rotations of the table.
You're just going to get so much value off it. It's an enchantment 5 blue, I believe. Every time an opponent casts a spell, you reveal the top card of your library.
Their first spell each turn only.
Their spells, yeah. And you get to cast that spell for free, right?
Yeah, on everybody's turn, you cast a random spell off the top of their deck. Sometimes you get lands, but it's good.
Yeah, most time you're just getting things that are going to win you the game. Let's move on to a category I'm not terribly excited about, to be honest. It's Best Planeswalker. The answers for the best card are obvious. I think the best part of this episode is the discussion of the runner-ups.
No, okay, interesting, because I actually think that the one we've got down for Best Planeswalker, I actually think one of the runner-ups might be the best. So here we go. Discussion is about to ensue. Okay. So Jimmy thinks the best Planeswalker, and listen, this card's very good, and you're not crazy or anything.
I believe the best Planeswalker in blue to be Teferi Temporal Archmage. It is the commander of a CEDH deck. That's probably what really drew me towards this. It's a 5 loyalty Planeswalker for 6 mana. The +1, you can look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other on the bottom of your library. And the -1 is untap up to 4 target permanents. I won't read the ultimate. It really doesn't matter. But
ultimate lets you activate Planeswalkers as instants. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun, but
never happens.
Yeah, Teferi's here to untap 4 permanents when he comes into the battlefield.
Goes infinite with a ton of stuff, notably Chain Veil, and just very good value in general. It is a 6-drop, however. Listen, this card's insane, and I don't fault you, but I think this next one might actually be the best blue Planeswalker in Commander. It's Narset, new one from War of the Spark. Narset, Parter of Veils, 1 blue for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. It says it has a static ability. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. Boom.
Yeah, hammer thrown.
That is
throw
brutal.
Hammer dropped.
I don't know how many.
Mic dropped.
It's become very commonplace to see it now, and every time it comes out, it's like, oh crap. Well, that totally messes up my plans.
Remember a certain commander that was banned that had similar text?
Yes, Leovold. Yeah. So it's a banned card, basically.
Yeah.
And it has a -2 also, which is relevant. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. And then you put the rest on the bottom of your library. So it draws cards, so it doesn't just do nothing sitting there. Obviously, can be attacked, doesn't protect itself. But 5 loyalty is a lot. So
yeah, that's true. 3 mana, 5 loyalty is big game.
A lot of times it comes out and it's just not going to be gotten rid of very fast, which means that, a lot of your plays just become way worse.
Yeah, I can see why you might think that.
Also, wheel effects.
Yeah, a one-sided wheel where everyone draws 1 card and you draw 7 is just
nuts.
Dirty. That's why Leovold was definitely thrown in there. Next up, we have Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. All I have to say about this card is that Lab Maniac is one of the most common win conditions for a lot of decks that want to draw through, and Jace literally just has the text. If you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead.
Also, better than Lab Maniac.
Yeah, because it can mill yourself.
Draw the card and mill yourself.
Yeah.
So Lab Maniac just sits there and says, you got to do other stuff to get your library down to 0. Jay says, I'll actually help you do that other stuff too.
Yep. He +1s to put a target player to put the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard and draw a card. That's a +1 draw card and mill yourself towards the strategy that's going to win you the game. So pretty good, obviously in a very specific category.
The next one is Tamiyo, the Moon Stage. 3 blue, legendary Planeswalker. +1, tap target permanent. Tap target permanent.
Say that 5 times fast.
It doesn't untap it during its controller's next untap step, so it puts it to sleep. -2, draw a card for each tap creature target player controls, so synergizes with the plus ability. And then the ultimate is you get an emblem with, you have no maximum hand size, and whenever a card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you may return it to your hand.
That pairs well with Jace, actually.
Yeah. Tammy's just kind of good value all around.
Yeah, pretty solid card. The last card that we would mention would be Tezzeret the Seeker.
I think that's in the running for best, too.
Yeah, he's just a planeswalker that can come down, and most importantly, he minus X's to find a XCMC artifact from your deck and put it into the battlefield. So again, combo enabler gets you the thing you need to potentially just win that turn off the bat.
Tutors for artifacts, which we've talked about many times on the show.
Yeah.
A lot of decks going infinite with mana just requires finding a specific artifact. So.
Okay.
All right. Let's move on to best creature here.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. I don't know.
This is the tough
Again,
one,
I don't
too.
know if I agree with our choice, but it is one of the best creatures.
Yeah, maybe that's the beauty of this discussion is that there are a few runner-ups for each choice. Because, again, Commander is a very flexible game, and each card's going to be better in certain scenarios. But some cards are just good.
So the one you've got, you go ahead and read it.
It's Snapcaster Mage. 1 in the
Snappy.
blue for a 2/1 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So you basically get to have it instant speed access to one card in your graveyard. And the instant speed part is huge. The fact that you can replay a spell from your graveyard is huge. There's just a lot going on.
It's an ETB. You can flicker it.
Yeah, so Snapcaster Mage, I think, just has that generic value. It's good in a lot of different parts of the game. And
the CMC is real low.
Yep. So that's why I think it's the best.
Yeah, it's hard to argue when you talk about it. However, the list of other really good blue creatures.
Yeah, we won't say all of them just because this is the longest runner-up list we have.
Yeah, also,
We won't read
two
all
of these
of
we're
them.
going to talk about when we talk about best commanders. So I
Yeah.
think we can just save that discussion for that, right?
Okay.
So, but the next one is another huge combo enabler.
Palinchron. It's everyone's favorite illusion. It's a 5 blue 4/5 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, untap up to 7 lands and 2 blue. Return Palinchron to its owner's hand. You get to bounce this sucker to your hand and replay him again. You get to go infinite on mana so easily with this
Yeah,
thing.
you just need a few lands to tap for
Blue.
more than 1 mana, and
Yeah.
it goes infinite pretty fast. Also, it's an ETB, so flickering it goes infinite on mana really fast.
Or if you have like an Animar that can cast it for cheaper than 7.
Yep, it's a good card. The next one is one of the Praetors. It's Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur. 8 blue, 10 mana for a 5/4 with flash. But it says, at the beginning of your end step, draw 7 cards. You would think that would be powerful enough, but it's not. Because it also says each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. So their maximum hand size is no cards?
Yeah, discard your hand at the end of your turn is what it is.
Unless you have a Reliquary Tower or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, very powerful, but 10 mana. This is a runner-up. I mean,
most
this
powerful.
If somebody
you're
came
right.
to me and said, like, I don't think Snapcaster is the most powerful card this is, I wouldn't think they're nuts.
Yeah. It's Glenalendra, Archmage. Oh, sorry. You know what? We say it like Glenalendra is the name. It's
Right.
not. It's the Archmage from Glenalendra.
It'd be like saying Los Angeles Archmage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's like a... Yeah, whatever. There's a lot of these, evidently, and which is true because I see them all the time in the game games. Yeah.
I'm always just like, no, her name is Glenalendra.
Yeah, but she's not a legendary creature, so...
No.
Okay.
It's 3 in the blue for a 2/2 with flying. You can pay a blue to sacrifice it, counter target non-creature spell, and it has persist, so it's coming back to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it if it didn't have one when it died.
And there's so much synergies with persist and being able to just do that forever that this is often like counter everything.
Yeah, and it's or otherwise it's 2 counters in a row.
Yeah,
it's so
which
hard
is
to
still
get around
brutal.
that. Yeah.
The next one is another possibility. Used to be one of the boogeymen of the format. You hear less complaints about it, but when we started this podcast 4 or 5 years ago,
People talked about it all the time.
people were asking for this to get banned like constantly.
Yeah, it's true.
It's Deadeye Navigator. 4 blue for a 5/5 spirit. Has Soul Bond, so you may pair this creature with another unpaired creature. When either enters the battlefield, they remain paired for as long as you control both of them. And then as long as Deadeye Navigator is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has... This is Deadeye and the creature's paired with, has pay 1 in a blue, exile this creature, then return it to the battlefield under your control.
It's an immediate flicker. It stables onto 2 creatures and it protects itself.
Protects itself, protects the creature it's paired with, can often like do shenanigans where it pairs with other stuff when you feel like it. Yeah, this card is one of the reasons like Prime Time's banned and things like that.
Yeah.
Sundering Titan maybe is, although I think that's probably bannable by itself. But all right, here's another possibility for best creature in blue, Laboratory Maniac. We talked
One of
about
the
it
most
earlier.
common win conditions in the format for sure.
And then we talked about it already, so we won't go into it. And the next one I think actually might be the best creature. If I were making the argument, I would pick this as the best blue creature. It's Trinket Mage.
Trinket Mage, 2 in the blue, and it comes into the battlefield. You get to find a 1 CMC artifact.
1 or less.
Yeah, 1 or less.
And put it into your hand. So
Like Mana Crypt.
Soul
Ring.
Every single
Mana
deck,
Vault.
it goes find Soul Ring at the least. Mana
Yeah.
Vault, Mana Crypt. The most powerful cards in your deck are going to be Soul Ring, and then if you have Crypt and Vault, also top
Yeah.
Like it goes and finds your most powerful thing.
Maybe Trinket Mage is the best ramp spell too then.
It's really good.
It always gets a soul ring.
It might be, yeah.
All right, next up, we're going to talk about best land. And this is, again, like, it could be dependent on your deck, could be dependent on what you're doing. For me, my personal favorite is Manamo, School at Water's Edge. A legendary land.
Changed it on me.
Yeah, I did. Because I love this card.
Okay.
But I think the other one might be better. I just have had so much fun with this card, Josh.
Okay, it is great, and it is right up my alley.
You tap it to add blue, and you pay a blue and tap it to untap target legendary permanence. You could actually pay it to untap itself.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe there'll be a card where, like, every time you tap a land...
Yeah, it wants you to just keep
except
tapping
when
it.
you tap a land for mana, it deals 4 damage to each opponent or something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the next one is, or one of the runner-ups, I think this is the best blue.
Okay, fine.
But it's a little niche. It's Academy Ruins. This is a legendary land. You can tap it for colorless, or you can pay 1 and blue, tap it, put target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library.
This is how people get into crazy, like, Mindslaver loops, all sorts of shenanigans.
If you want to loop a artifact, then Academy Ruins is the way to do it.
Yeah. It's pretty good, and it's very cheap. 1 in the blue to do that.
Yeah.
And some other runner-ups would be Teleria West.
Oh, I forgot about Transmute.
Yeah, so Transmute is a very interesting ability. The land itself enters the battlefield can tap for blue, but has Transmute for 1 blue in the blue, and you pay that to discard this card, search your library for a card with converted mana cost 0, because the land has converted mana cost 0, reveal it and put it into your hand. So it's like Trinket Mage almost. You can find a crypt.
It has crypt, and also, guys, cradles, and really good lands, because it'll find lands there have CMC 0.
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't even think about...
Kessler loves this card.
This might actually be the best blue land. Dang it, I keep saying that
it's
about
like a tutor on the land,
land,
right?
Well,
yeah.
This might be.
Well, this
next one might be if you have a Wizards deck. It's Riptide Laboratory. If it's British, you say laboratory, right?
Laboratory, yeah, like
Laboratory.
aluminium.
Well, they actually have different letters in their word than we do.
Really?
Yeah,
well,
if you look in a British dictionary, aluminum is spelled aluminium. So they're...
You sound way smarter when you say it like that, too.
It's like Jaguar.
Jaguar.
Okay, sorry. Riptide Laboratory. Land, taps for colorless. You can pay 1 in a blue, tap it, and return target wizard you control to its owner's hand. So if it's a Wizards deck, this is the best land.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, I don't know. I think I might go with Teleria West.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we got one more. Sorry.
Yeah, this one's definitely not.
Oh, this one might be the best.
It's a loose... No, it's not.
It's so good.
Yeah, but it's a loose runner-up because you only got to do it once. All right,
yeah,
fine.
but it costs you nothing.
True. And it's just a land slot? Okay, fine. It's pretty good. And this one does go in, I'd say,
every blue deck.
Yeah, Talamar Depths. It enters the battlefield tapped. When it ETBs, you look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. So it's scribe it only to the top of your library, and you can tap it to add blue.
It's really good to just smooth out your early draws. Imagine how many times we talked about, like, your 3rd card down's a Fellwar Stone. How different is that game when you play Halimar Depths, put Fellwar Stone on top, cast that on turn 2, than if you drew that on turn 4 or 5?
Yeah, or you find a fetch land so you can shuffle the cards away that you don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely very good.
Okay. The next category is Best Counterspell. I don't think we're probably going to have this category for most of the other colors.
No.
It's Lapse of Certainty.
Yeah, I was going to say Lapse of Certainty. There you go.
This one's actually kind of tough. There's a few in contention. They're all expensive, though.
Yeah, and that is the issue with the best of lists. And when we did top 10 lists, it was like, we don't want to say Gaia's Cradle for green, because obviously it's one of the most powerful cards.
There are some runners
out here,
though,
expensive, so it's just hard to get. Yeah,
there are at least 2, 3 that I think are almost as good as the best one, but this is the best one.
Yeah, it's mana drain, it's blue. It's been reprinted somewhat recently, but it doesn't stop it from being expensive, unfortunately. It's an instant, you counter a spell, and then at the beginning of your next main phase, you add an amount of colorless mana equal to that spell's converted mana cost. So you counter a 6 mana spell, you just ramp yourself by 6 in your next turn, and you countered the spell?
It's crazy.
What a 2-for-1.
It's insane. If you do that on turn like 3 or 4, you can win sometimes because you're like, I have 14 mana now.
Yep.
There are 2 quote-unquote free counterspells, Force of Will and Pact of Negation, both very expensive. Both have slight downsides.
Yeah. There's also was it Foil?
Foil.
Yeah, Foil.
Foil is the cheap alternative to Force of Will, and I think very playable. You have to be blue heavy, probably not playable in 3 color decks.
Yeah. There's just Counterspell.
I think it's really good.
I mean, it's so cheap. Blue.
I actually think the next one might be the best one if you consider price.
It's definitely your favorite, I would say.
It's cheap, but not super cheap. But I think it does a good impersonation of Force of Will and Pact of Negation.
For the cost, especially, yeah.
Yeah, and it only costs like $4 or $5 compared to $50, right?
Yeah.
Swan Song, 1 blue for an instant, counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery, and its controller gets a 2/2 bird creature with flying. This gets me out of more jams than any other card, probably.
Yeah.
Because leaving 1 mana open is a lot easier than 2, and it's close to 0. Not the exact same, obviously, but it's very good.
And someone gets a bird. That's exciting. The next one is one that I personally like a lot, and it's a little more expensive, but boy, does it do a lot. Mystic Confluence, 3 blue for an instant. You choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. You can either mana drain someone, so counter target spell unless his controller pays 3, or if you triple it up, unless they pay 9.
Or you pay 6, or you pay 9, yeah.
You can return a target creature to its owner's hand and draw a card. So those are the 3 modes. You pick and choose, have fun, 5 mana, you can kind of do everything.
I mean, it's so powerful. Be like, counter that, bounce that, draw a card.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the next one's a new card from Commander 2019.
Thank goodness some new cards made it.
It's Sudden Substitution. 2 blue for an instant, split second. So as long as this spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. Basically, like Morph and very few other ways can interact with this. It's going to happen. You exchange control of target non-creature spell and target creature. Then the spell's controller may choose new targets for it. You don't even have to exchange it with yourself, right? You can be like, hey, Jimmy, your creature is going to exchange with Craig, and and Jimmy, you're going to get Craig's spell.
Yeah, exactly. It's bizarre, the things that can happen with this card, and I expect many people to be like, wait, hold on, what? You can do that?
Yeah. A lot of times you're just like, I don't know, give you this thing that already ETB'd and had its effect, and I'll take your awesome Expropriate.
Yeah. And
you can't counter it. It's split second.
Yeah. Ugh.
It's a really good card. I had it played against me a couple times in Vegas,
really?
And it was brutal every time. Yeah.
Oh, geez. I think it might have been pushed then. All right.
The last category.
It's the one that we've been waiting for. It's Best Commander, because we play Commander. That's what this show's about.
This is really hard. Okay, I'm going to name for the audience
all of the options.
All the options, and I'm going to add one really quick here because it's fun to do that.
Okay. I'll start. We've already talked about this first card, so we should just may as well mention it now.
Yeah, well, let's just read them all, and then we'll let the audience think about it while we let them deliberate, and then we'll say what we think is the best one. So it's Teferi, Temporal Archmage, Talran, Sky Summoner, Azami, Lady of Scrolls, Urza, Lord High Artificer, Memnarch, and I just put Emry onto the list.
Yeah.
Because I think Emry is up there.
Brand new card from Throne of Eldraine.
Yeah.
The Lady in the Water. So
we have chosen what we think is the best commander of the bunch. Let's see if you guys out there agree with us. Jimmy?
Drum roll, please. Well, it's clearly Teferi, Temporal Archmage. Who else could it be? He's the captain of the most CEDH of all the decks.
Let's say that Paradox Engine was still legal. Is Urza a possibility? Because I think Urza was probably...
He had a lot more power with that card around.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say maybe, but does that also benefit Teferi just as much too? Because you're untapping things?
I think... My Teferi deck doesn't even have Paradox Engine because by the time you could get it, you're already winning.
You have a Teferi deck?
Yeah.
You monster.
Well, Kyle Hill plays in our playgroup, and I had to start making no. I've always had one CEDH deck just for when I go to events. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I
by the way, I get asked to play it. I played it a couple times in Vegas, but I play it so rarely that I'm not very good with it.
Oh,
so I'm like,
a lot of choices,
I swear I should be able to win here, but I'm just probably going to mess it up.
And everyone's like, whew, thank goodness we didn't lose on turn 4.
I haven't played this deck in 6 months, so.
That's actually amazing.
I mean, Talran's a very strong deck. Azami's a crazy strong deck.
Azami's actually a really cheap card too, and people love playing travel. There's been a lot more travel support recently, so Azami could be very good.
Urza, of course, crazy.
Yeah, Memnarch in the make infinite mana steal everyone kind of thing. That's like a Craig Blanchett special. So, they're all very powerful. I think the end message is that Blue just has some very good cards for commanders.
I mean, Black is the most popular monocolor, by number of decks on each Trek. But I would say that as far as monocolor, the tip top of the most powerful decks, I think Blue probably takes the cake. I don't think there's, a slew of mono black or mono green decks that can stand up to what Blue has to offer.
Yeah, that's true.
It's crazy. All these decks are insane if you build them to full optimization.
Yeah, and not fun to play against a lot of times. Before we move on to the listeners, there were a couple of categories we didn't get to, but we're just going to quickly name them here. Best tutor, Josh and I just think it's Mystical Tutor. It's the cheapest. It gets a lot of stuff.
Whir of Invention is close, and Trinket Mage.
Yeah, Whir of Invention is very close. All the mages actually can all tutor up. And then best enchantment. There's a lot of options here too. Propaganda, I think, is the one that people probably play the most. If you're a Vidalcan Aura fan, then Leyline of Anticipation is right down your alley.
Ding!
Mind's Dilation, which we talked about earlier, and one of my personal favorites, Dream Halls. And then the card that no one never wants to see stasis. So
it's so powerful. Stasis is insane.
Yeah.
But yes, no fun at all.
We have a ton of categories here. We want to know, and to the listeners, what you think the most powerful cards are. You can type it out in the comments below, but I would much prefer it if you checked out the link for the poll that we're going to have, and you're going to enter in your information and what you think those are, and we're going to be able to see what the consensus is from hopefully thousands of people, and I think that's actually really exciting.
Cool, yeah, and make sure you can find a lot of that discussion that's going to ensue after the poll is sort of tallied on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook.
Yep.
All those things should be on screen, or yeah, you can just Google it, because I don't have them all memorized.
Me neither.
How do you find us on Facebook? You just type in Command Zone into the search?
We're it.
Okay. All right. Another thing you should type in to your URL area is cardkingdom.com/commandzone. If you want to pick up any of these blue cards that are awesome that we've been talking about, especially a lot of the budget alternatives, I think like if you're not playing with Mystic Remora, it should be in a lot of your decks. It's very, very good and way cheaper than Ristic Study. So cardkingdom.com/commandzone. You order your Magic products, singles, anything at all. You really are helping out this show, game nights, all of our content.
And you're also helping us out if you support our other sponsor, UltraPro. You can buy all those products on Card Kingdom or at your big box retailer or at an LGS. And the great part about buying at an LGS is you're supporting the LGS as well as us at the exact same time. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I want to support my LGS when I buy cards, so I don't use your affiliate link. I'm like, that's totally fine, by the way. One way you can double dip, UltraPro at your LGS, and you know what? Make your battlefield look awesome when you're making your new, very scary mono blue deck.
Get those blue Eclipse sleeves for sure.
For sure.
All right, now it's time for the end step where we talk about something cool outside the world of Magic. Do you have something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not cool, though. It's something Josh and I have both now suffered through. Don't feed your dogs bones.
Oh, yeah. This is something I didn't really know.
Don't give them hard objects, because the most common tooth fracture is using these two back molars that grind against things, and bones have a tendency to crack and chip teeth. Guess what? If your dog chips the tooth, it's going out. Or you're paying a ton of extra. You're already paying a lot of money to get that extracted. Otherwise, you're paying even more money to get a root canal for a dog, which is not necessary.
Yeah. Usually they just have to take out the tooth, and then the dog's fine, but you have to be careful. You got to wash their mouth out a lot. They can get infections because
it's an open nerve ending now in their
and
mouth.
Then they can't chew on much for the rest of their life. Like, you know, it's a thing. Yeah, I didn't really know this. I thought that like you give a dog a bone. Like that's just like a thing. It's on cartoons and stuff, and it's like, you know, it's not that you can't ever let your dog have a bone, but you shouldn't let them chew on it for very long at all. Because listen.
The dog doesn't have self-control.
How do dogs make it as a species? Like, you know, like they just don't have any, like, I don't know, what's natural selection that like tells them like I shouldn't chew on this bone till my teeth break.
Yeah. Yeah, my dog will just sit there and gnaw on something until it is just almost nothing is left. And at that point, it's dangerous because if I step on that, I'm going to get punctured in my skin.
Swallow it or whatever.
She swallows it, that's awful.
Yeah, my dog would 100% swallow something because the natural selection just didn't work for dogs. Like, they don't have anything that keeps them from doing stupid stuff.
Yeah. And we bred them a lot. A lot of, like, the really mixed breeds sometimes get even more less intelligent over time, too.
Because they glommed onto humans, and they're like, why do I need to know not to chew on a bone? The human will tell me when to stop.
Yeah, there's never any point where true.
Which just makes us really bad dog parents because we didn't tell our dogs to stop, and then they both broke their teeth.
They were so
not at the
happy.
same time. Mine did it a couple years ago.
They were so happy when they're chewing. They're like, oh, this is it, and you're like, goodness, thank goodness my dog's not gonna bug me to play with them. They're gonna ignore me and eat this bone for a while. Turns out that bone's it's dangerous.
The thing that the vet told me, which by the way, he was giving me the like shake head, like, how did you not know this? You get, you let her do what? Well, I didn't know. I thought it was a dog was supposed to be able to have a bone. So anything that is hard enough that if you can't squeeze it, and it's like if you squeeze it and it's soft, it has a little give, then they can have that. But if it doesn't do that, they can't have it.
Bones are like one of the strongest parts of our body, and it's like a diamond. What can cut a diamond, Josh?
Another diamond.
Yeah, what can cut a bone? Another freaking bone. So yeah, be careful if you're feeding your dogs bones. It is going to take a hefty chunk out of my wallet. So make sure you go to cardkingdom.com/commandzone because I did not expect to have to pay another month of rent because my dog chipped a tooth.
Yeah, that's brutal. All right, make sure you check out our sister podcast, The Masters of Modern. Alice Kessler and Ben Bateman. They talk about the modern format and all things competitive Magic. They got a lot to talk about right now because Throne of Eldraine, as with any new set, is always going to shake things up a little bit, and a bunch of bannings. That Modern's really going through a shakeup. So If you want to know all about it, you can find them on Twitter at the MMcast. You can find them on YouTube. Just type in Masters of Modern or all your podcast apps, or right next to us at collected.company.
And you can find our editors by watching this video and thinking about them editing it, because they're Ashlyn Rose and Craig Blanchett.
And please, in the comments, tell Craig to stop giving 5 cards for fact and fiction. Craig, just think about it for a second, make a decision. Like, be strategical, please.
He's going to do 4 spells in 1 land. He's like, all right, Josh, you said don't give all 5. I'll get around it this way. You can find those guys on Instagram and Twitter as well. Craig's actually the one that's helping us run our Instagram, so make sure you go and follow that if you use Instagram. And finally, special thanks to Geoffrey Palmer for the living card animations. We've had days flying behind us, which we didn't mention all podcast, because it's not as good as the other cards we mentioned.
It's still good, though.
Yeah, it's still very good. You can find him on Twitter at livingcardsmtg, and you can watch our videos at youtube.com/the Command Zone Podcast.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter at JFWong and at Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.